It's Yo Dude with J. Yo Dude, our Hypothesis Podcast Metropolis.
Welcome everybody back to the Yo Dude Podcast. This is Ant again this week by myself doing a solo pod. Jay's still obviously tying up some odds and ends, and then he'll be back on the show with me, and we'll be back enjoying some awesome times like we always have on here on the Yo Dude Podcast. It's a fun time that we get to sit and chat and have some hilarious conversations. So he'll be back very shortly, and we look forward to having him back. And then obviously this week, just like last week and the week before, our sponsor of the show is Uncle Larry's Pipe Stash, and Uncle Larry's Pipe Stash is your place to go for any awesome handmade in the United States from exotic hardwood pipes for your enjoyment. You can easily pre-pack them to take on the go or enjoy at your leisure and look really stylish and awesome doing so. So head over to UncleLarry'sPipeStash.com and check out his selection. Obviously, he is still revamping his store and replenishing all of his awesome products. So look forward to some awesome new stuff soon. So that being said, let's kick into today's show. And I wanted to start today's show by announcing that I just saw that pumpkin spice lattes are back at Starbucks. Yeah. Nothing says summer's over like the Starbucks pumpkin spice latte. So, all you people who love fall, I don't blame you. Fall's pretty cool, but summer's way better. So, pumpkin spice lattes are, I think, a little overrated in my opinion. It's never been my cup of tea, per se, but people love them. Seem to always enjoy when they are back, and pumpkin spice latte season is a thing. So, for all the basic ladies out there, as they call them, your jam is back at Starbucks. So go check that out. I much prefer just regular black coffee, but I think that's a seasonal amazingness, and it's every season, whether it's summer, fall, winter, spring, doesn't matter. I will drink some black coffee. I will say that I did pick up some seasonal creamer, which is pretty cool. So every now and then I guess I'll pop some of those in. I'm not much of a creamer guy because I'm on a journey to lose weight and get down to a respectable weight, which I will tell you right now, I am pretty far away from where I want to be. About 30 pounds from my goal weight. And goal weight is about what I was in high school. But I'm about 10 pounds away from being where I would feel okay at and where I'd be at my lowest probably in the last 10 years. So I've already lost almost 35 pounds. So pretty awesome. Doing a lot of jump rope, a lot of cardio. Finally got back into running, push-ups, sit-ups, jumping jacks, all the basic stuff. And then obviously adding in, more reps as well as higher weights and all that kind of stuff. Just mixing it up, enjoying life. And that kind of brings me to the first story, which was I just recently saw that Kevin Smith, the director of Clerks, Chasing Amy, Mallrats, Jay and Silent Bob, you name it. He's pretty much probably directed some of the favorite movies of our generation. Mallrats is my personal favorite. Watched that movie about 1 billion times. He's down to 205 pounds, which is pretty impressive. Obviously, always known as a big guy. Listened to him on Joe Rogan's podcast a little while back, and guess he had a heart attack. From that, he decided to change his eating styles. I guess his daughter is a vegan, so he went on the plant-based diet, and that's kind of where he's been losing a lot of the weight. I guess he's a Weight Watchers ambassador as well, which is pretty cool. It's always nice to see people get fit. He looks great. I saw the picture. Amazing. So only encourages me more. I mean, if that guy can get down to 205, I can feel like I could probably get down to where I want to be at, which is about 180. Sitting about 210 right now. So I'm actually way more than Kevin Smith, which is pretty cool, I guess. I mean, for him, pretty. So I mean, he's definitely losing a lot of weight, and I can almost probably vouch for about how big he is because we're about the same size. I mean, I don't know his height, so he might be shorter than me, but pretty awesome to see him lose that weight. And like I said, he's probably directed some of my favorite movies. I mean, Mallrats was a movie I watched for a good stretch almost every day. Jason Lee in that movie is amazing. As does the whole movie. I mean, it's incredibly quotable, and so many awesome scenes in there. If you haven't watched Mallrats, definitely do. I think it might be one of the more underrated ones too, because I think a lot of people go Clerks, Chasing Amy, Jay and Silent Bob. So it might be one of the more underrated ones, I would assume. I don't know exactly how people grade those. Write those down in the comments. I think that's what we'll do. In the comments, write in order if you've seen them all, how you would put Clerks, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, and Jay and Silent Bob. And Jay and Silent Bob too. So mark them down how you enjoy them. Mallrats is my number one. What's yours? Moving on to that, from that I should say, definitely wanted to touch on a few things that I saw during the week that involve sports. First one, Kirk Cousins turning down $90 million guaranteed for 3 years from the Jets to go play for the Vikings. I saw that made pretty big headlines. I go a little bit of both ways here. So, Kirk Cousins obviously played for Michigan State, which is my college team. I think he always seemed to be a super awesome guy and make pretty good sound decisions. Got franchise tagged twice, so made a ton of money as quarterback. And he ended up with a $84 million, I believe $84 million over 3 years, fully guaranteed contract with the Vikings, which I think gives him a better chance to win. Honestly, defense is way better, and just all around the organization seems a lot better for him. So taking $6 million less over 3 years really doesn't seem like that big of a deal in the long grand scheme of things when you are looking at that kind of money. I mean, he's still making $28 million a season or something like that. So I think it's broken down weird. I think it's like 26, 28, 20, 30, I think is in the last. I can't remember, but he's going to make a ton of money regardless. And the next 3 years with the Vikings, he's probably going to have way better odds of going deep into the playoffs and winning possibly in the playoffs after looking at what Minnesota did last year. So he probably has a way better odds of getting back to that with the Vikings than he would with the Jets. And also the Jets AFC team play against the Patriots and a lot of other awesome teams. NFC is getting better, and I do hate to see him come to the division that my team's in, which is the Lions, as you can see. But I still think it's going to be a better fit for him. So some of these stories that come out when it comes to money in sports is absurd. To the point of like, you're like, oh, this guy took this money over this money, and you're like, he still made a ton of money for playing a game. Like, the fact that he's going to make an average of $28 million a season, and he plays, not counting preseason, you're going to play 16 games plus maybe a few playoff games. Worst case scenario, 3 to 4 extra games. I think that's as many as you would play. Yeah, I think 3 if you get the bye. Yeah, 3 if you get the bye to get to the Super Bowl, and 4 if you don't get a bye. So, I mean, worst case scenario, 20 games in a season, and you're making 28. You're making more than $1 million a game. So, that's pretty impressive, and not a bad way to earn a living. So, congrats to Kirk Cousins on being able to turn down that extra money to go to a better situation. Seems like that's the kind of quarterback decisions you want if you're paying a guy that much money to assess the situation and pick the best one for him. So kudos to you, Kirk Cousins. Talking about contracts. Oh, we're going to talk about the WNBA. And anyone who knows me knows that I love the WNBA. I am a true fan. I have WNBA League Pass, have had it for the last 3 seasons, and watch as many games as I can. I absolutely love the sport. I think it's a more interesting product than the NBA in a lot of circumstances. There are a couple games here and there in the NBA that you want to watch, but for the most part, I really find that the WNBA has way more intriguing matchups night in and night out, and also the talent level is ridiculous. As you can see, and probably were wondering up until this point, why I have 4 WNBA superstars on here. It's because there's so much talent. I literally had like 24 players that I was ready to put on this thing. I just ran out of room, and then I decided it looked better with 4 players instead of jumbled up with a ton of other players. But as you can see on here, you have Skylar Diggins-Smith, Brittany Griner, Breanna Stewart, and Maya Moore, and so many other players could have been on here. But the superstars of this league are in abundance. I mean, you have Diana Taurasi, who's probably the Michael Jordan of the sport, and you have Sue Bird, you have Liz Cambage, you have Sylvia Fowles, who won the MVP last year, Nika Agumakwai, I can never pronounce her name. I literally, if you follow the other thing that I do, I can't pronounce it over there either. You have her sister as well, who is in the league. You have Alyssa Thomas, Alana Beard, who's 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, Jessica Breland, Stephanie Dolson. I mean, that's just counting. That's just thinking off the top of my head. Obviously, while doing this, so many talented players. Asia Wilson, who was a fantastic rookie this season and just lit up the league. You obviously have Elena Deladon, who is one of my favorite players to watch, and is right now in an awesome playoff series with Atlanta, as her Mystics are playing Atlanta. I think Seattle's probably going to win the other one, but I think Phoenix might steal a game and make it interesting here. I love WNBA. There's 12 teams, and there's a lot of talent. And these awesome players, just because they're women, don't make what the men make. Now, you may have seen some of the news that came out recently where Brittany Griner was attributed with a quote about a NBA player making $20 million and being mediocre. I see on her Instagram that she says she never said that, which I have a tendency to believe. I don't think WNBA players are going around just trashing NBA players, because they do play the same sport and they are in the same boat. Whereas it comes to dealing with the league, and I think a lot of people misread the quote that was attributed to her anyway, saying that she would be asking for equal pay, whereas I think probably more so just a bump in pay and fairly paid is something that the women of the WNBA are looking for. I think while I think they should be making in the millions, because I enjoy the sport, they have to look at revenue, and they have to look at how that is distributed. Currently, the NBA, the men's league, the players are getting about 50% of the revenue that's brought in, which is a lot of revenue. The league is almost 70 plus years old, so has a established fan base from a long time, and had multiple generations of stars come through and shown that it's a league that is going to continue to stay around for a long time. Now, this is where you will get into a heated debate with a lot of people who will either say no one watches the WNBA, which is false. No one cares that women play, which is false. That stadiums aren't full, which is mostly false. Yes, they have less attendance than the NBA games. They also play in, I think most of them play in the same arena as the pro club or a comparable size, but the ones that don't play in an arena that is shared with an NBA teams, you watch those games and they are full. So they are playing in bigger stadiums. Yes, they're not going to look full on TV because they're playing in bigger stadiums. So you go take a NFL game to somewhere where there's a 200,000 seat arena and it's not going to be full probably. So it's all about arena size, and obviously that is some of the optics that go into it. And but you look at the talent in the WNBA and the talent in the NBA, and I think both of them are going through great periods of having super talented players. The NBA in its 21st season, which I believe was the 1966-1967 season, was in a very similar boat as the WNBA was last year, which was their 21st season. If you look at it on paper, WNBA had more attendance on average by almost over 1,000, and they both leagues had 12 teams. And so if you look at that, you can see the promising growth that the WNBA has. I think what's going to happen is we're going to look back on this era, and we're going to look back at some of the greatest players to play the sports. Right now, we're watching the Wilt Chamberlains, the Elgin Baylors, the Kareem Abdul-Jabbars of the sport play that we're going to look back on in obviously Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, Candace Parker, all of them, and we're going to look back and be like, man, they were severely underpaid while they played, because now the sport is as popular or in the running for being a superly more popular sport than it is today. And that's not saying it's not a popular sport today. So I think there's a major thing that a lot of people really haven't looked at. I noticed a couple people commenting on it after I brought it up in a couple message boards, and it's the revenue sharing. Right now, from all estimates, there's anywhere between 20 to 22% of revenue being paid out to WNBA players. Keep in mind that's 50% for the NBA side. So that's a lot of difference, especially when you look at the amount of revenue being generated. So WNBA does generate less revenue. Fact. WNBA plays a shorter schedule. Fact. But that is mostly due to the NBA not wanting it to be in conflict with the NBA. So they basically play when the NBA is not playing. So they could very easily elongate these schedules, and I don't think any of these women would complain. They could probably easily, with the talent level that continues to come in year after year and make this sport even deeper, could expand to a number of more teams to make it even more interesting. And then the revenue would go up, obviously, with more teams, because you'd have more attendance at different stadiums, more accessibility. I know for me, living in Colorado, if I had an easy accessibility to either a Colorado Springs or a Denver team, I would easily probably be mostly season ticket holder, or at least go to more than half the games, schedule depending. So you would have a lot of people going to these games in cities that don't currently have a team. So that's one thing. But the big revenue shift would turn from what is an average WNBA salary is projected somewhere around $73,000. That's average throughout the entire league. You obviously have more and you obviously have less players making more and less. If you took that from the 20 to 22 range of revenue to 50, you would have an average salary of about $177,000, which is a drastic difference from $73,000. That would entitle you or allow you to go and pay your stars, and then also to have rookie contracts in place that could be renegotiated and turned into bigger contracts as players produce. So I think what you would have is less players playing possibly overseas in full year-round leagues, especially if you wanted to elongate the WNBA season and pay them more, which would make for obviously better viewing. It's really outside of football, which is a 16-week sport, essentially, with playoffs. Obviously, it's about 20, a little bit longer than that. You don't have a lot of sports that are that short in time span of playing for a major league. So you would have to elongate the season, I think, which, again, I don't think any of these women would argue with or have a problem with if they were being compensated, because they're already playing year-round anyway, most of them. So you could easily, just by shifting, and I think the collective bargaining agreement for them ends after next season, so I think that could be a massive shift, very similar to what the NBA did, which is shortly after their 21st season, I think right around the 23rd season, they had a renegotiation, and the players got higher revenues and higher share of the revenue, and also free agency went into play, I'm pretty sure, or pretty close after that, which is another problem with the WNBA. There's some weird stuff in there that allows teams to keep players for a super long time, and then they kind of have to force their way out. Happened to Elena Deladon, and I believe Sylvia Fowles as well. Just by the nature of the beast, I think there has to be a better way to have players compensated and treated, and that would lead to, obviously, the league to grow. So, yeah, I think, in my opinion, while I don't think that players in the WNBA should make what NBA players make, although I do think NBA players make way too much money. I'm not going to get mad at anybody, but there's guys like Steph Curry, I think, making like $40 billion, close to it. And obviously, when you're a big star and the revenue's coming in, that's expected. I also don't really necessarily get mad at the top tier players for getting that money, because they do sell a ton of jerseys, shoes, etc., and they are worth every penny. There are guys, which was what intrigued me about the quote that was attributed to Brittany Griner, before she said she didn't say that, is there are guys like Tyler Johnson, good NBA player, not a starter usually, making I think it's like 19.2, I think is what he's allocated to make next year. That's a lot of money. 19.2 million. The entirety of the WNBA is for all of the players. It's about 150 players. Just estimating about that based on the numbers. It's 11.4 million, right around there. Now, the number of NBA players that make over 11.4 million this coming season is 115. There's 115 players in the NBA that make more money than the entirety of the players in the WNBA. Let that sink in. 115 NBA players make more money than all 12 teams worth of players in the WNBA. So, you can understand where I think the women are coming from when they talk about equal pay. I think a lot of people equate that to a full-blown equal pay. And I think a lot of these stars are saying, hey, you know what? I'm a 5-time All-Star. And I lead the league in categories. And I'm the star of my team. And I'm the highest paid player on my team. And I make the low 100,000s. Which, for a lot of us, we would say that's pretty good money to play a game. But when you're on billboards and you're selling tickets to major stadiums and you're the the face of a league and all of that, you should be compensated properly. I think for a lot of these players, something like even $500,000 to $1 million for some of these players. Major League Soccer had to kind of kick in and do some of that stuff. I don't know exactly 100% how that works for them, but they bring over players from Europe and they pay them out of pocket. Essentially, the league does, to make sure that they are playing in their league. And that's something that maybe the WNBA needs to look at and to help grow the sport. You're investing in your sport now so it can be what the WNBA is now, or what the NBA is now. So the WNBA is a seed that we're watering right now as fans, as owners, as GMs, as the league, as NBA investing in it. The generation after this is probably going to reap the benefits of, but definitely needs to, go out and do those things to make sure that league is around, because it is growing, and Lisa Borders is doing an amazing job continuing to help it grow. I think she really has a smart way of growing this talent that she is seeing, like everybody else who watches the sport and loves it. This talent in the WNBA is top notch. Getting those players recognized. First off, going to daily fantasy sports was a genius move. And getting WNBA, you're obviously having people pick their players and get to know them on a name basis with their photo. So now they have recognition. On top of that, you're seeing more and more commercials. You're seeing a player like Maya Moore go out and have big ad campaigns, and Candace Parker, and I mean, literally some of these players are just so dominant that it's amazing. I mean, Liz Cambage came in and ignited the league. She has a great personality. If you follow her on Instagram, she is having a blast, on top of being just like a crazy dominant player. I mean, scoring points at will, rebounding, blocking. I mean, you name it. She had an amazing year this year. Asia Wilson coming in as a rookie ignited Las Vegas in their first season. Super awesome to watch. You got even players like Kayla McBride, who plays for the Aces. I mean, had an amazing season. You got Seattle freaking has Brianna Stewart, Sue Bird, Jewel Lloyd, Natasha Howard. All of them could easily be a star by themselves on a team. Then you have them all on one team. Minnesota's the same way. You got Rebecca Brunson, Sylvia Fowles, Maya Moore, Lindsey Williams retiring, Simone Augustus. Just tons of talent. Connecticut has it with Alyssa Thomas, Chinny Ogumuke, didn't pronounce that right again, Thomas, Courtney Williams. I mean, number of talented players there. I mean, you name it across the board, you have so many talented players everywhere in the league. And they could easily expand more teams. They could easily expand more coverage on ESPN and such. And I think it would be a sport that grows very quickly. It already is. And I think a lot of people are going to be behind the eight ball when it comes to this sport growing and realizing that this sport is going to contend for serious attention in the near future. So I said it here first. WNBA is an awesome sport, and it will continue to grow. And the talent level in the league is second to none. So much talent and awesome games to watch. So if you haven't already, definitely check out the games that are coming up. Down to the semifinals in the playoffs, and there's a couple games left. Do yourself a favor and watch those games. And then get pumped for next year when all of that talent comes back and plays again, because it's amazing. It's fun to watch. And I can't say much more about it. It's an awesome sport, and enjoy the WNBA. So I thought that was interesting. Obviously, salary. I think they attributed Skylar Diggins saying something about LeBron James being unskilled, which sounds like the most astronomical thing ever. Why would anyone say that? And she definitely said she didn't say that. So if someone is trying to get that out there and try to figure out how to get out that WNBA players are complaining by knocking down these star players. I know she did say something about Harrison Barnes, not derogatory, just saying how he's the highest paid player in Dallas for the men's side. She's the highest paid player for Dallas on the women's side, and explaining the disparity in it and the fact that she is a multiple-time All-Star and all WNBA player. So definitely do some research, check it out. I think the biggest thing to get done for them is to split that revenue. That revenue needs to go up, and more money needs to get paid out to the players. And from there, as it grows, that will get bigger. That pot will get bigger. But even that jump to 50% from 20% payout would be so drastically better for the players, and I think would make at least a small gap or shorten the gap a little bit. And as the sport grows, they can grow as well. So, yeah. So that was definitely something I read a lot about yesterday as I was looking through, and bugged me because I am such a big fan of the sport, and I do enjoy it. And I have daughters who I think should have an opportunity to make a living in a sport if they choose to do so. I have one daughter that loves basketball to death, watches a lot of games with me, and enjoys seeing the women play. She does like watching the NBA, but she specifically will, if she's walking through the room and I'm watching NBA, she's like, "Oh, Dad, who's playing? Is it NBA or WNBA?" And I'll tell her NBA. And she'll be like, "Oh, cool, who's playing?" And if she doesn't recognize a star like LeBron James or Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, she's not super interested unless like maybe a playoff game that's interesting. And but she'll sit down and watch for a little bit, and then she'll get up and go. If she walks through and it's a WNBA game, she'll sit down. She won't even ask what team it is. She just enjoys it. She's seeing someone who is like her play the sport, and she can then aspire to be in that sport. So that's cool. That's something that's really big for me as a dad. I want to show my daughter that she can do anything. Both my daughters. And so WNBA is incredible. It helps that I love the sport a long time ago. I remember when it first became a sport. I wrote Rebecca Lobo a letter when she was in college and played in the 96 the Olympics, and she wrote me a letter back, and it was pretty cool. I enjoyed women's basketball for a long time. I think it's a really good sport, and I know everybody's like, "Oh, but they don't dunk all the time." How many times can you see the same dunk in a basketball game? Every now and then you get a good dunk. Cool. I much more enjoy the fundamental play of the women's sport and actual like basketball play, not just we have a breakaway and here's a dunk. So yeah, that's kind of my rant on that. And yeah, going forward from that, I think I obviously just brought up my daughter, so I would like to end on something that I was kind of thinking about the other day, which is as my friends have more and more kids, and we have just had our son. He's 15 months old, but then I have my daughters who are older. It's crazy to look at how family dynamic goes and watch my children do a lot of the same things that drove my parents crazy. So as a kid, my dad would tell me that my dad comes from a pretty big family, that one of his closer brothers, they would fight all the time to the point where they drove their parents crazy, and they were some crazy stories that I probably need to put down somewhere, because they are just some of my favorite stories that my dad's ever told me. But essentially, fight in the middle of the night, their dad would come down and basically was like, get in the car, take them to different houses, and leave them there for like a day or two. And they thought they were done. They're out of the house. It's pretty wild, but that's the kind of level of fighting they would have. I think one point, my dad told me they were fighting. They were throwing bricks at each other, full-blown punches to the face. Just wild stuff. My grandpa beat up his brother with a tire iron for stealing his tires one time. I mean, so sibling rivalry and sibling fights runs through the family. Me and my brother have gotten plenty of fist fights. Drive our parents crazy. My brother put my head through a plate glass window one time, or cracked a plate glass window with my head, and 10 minutes later we were playing PlayStation together. So you have those kind of awesome things. I'm noticing it more and more with my daughters. They have a massive sibling rivalry going, and they want to one-up each other. They also are very loving with each other, which is awesome. It's different to see it from a female side, because I don't think me and my brother ever had that, like, caring side. Obviously, we care about each other, and I love my brother to death, but we never really had that side where it's like, let me do your hair. Like, it was, I guess that's their equivalent. Like, they'll fight and go at each other and argue and stomp off, and 10 minutes later they're doing each other's hair or doing each other's makeovers or whatever it is that they do. That's probably their equivalent to playing PlayStation, but it's so comical to see as they grow up. The more and more they're just like us as we grew up, and I think that's something that I've recently gotten into deep, is trying to figure out, and I know it's something Jay's super into right now, just finding out more about our family histories and going back through and seeing things, your genealogy, your ancestry, or where you came from, what made you who you are, is something that we've really been talking about a lot in our text threads and stuff. So look for more of that probably coming up on the show as we talk more about that when Jay gets back. But yeah, it's made me really look into the family that I have, and my close family, the people that I've witnessed on a regular basis. Obviously my dad and his brother, and my brother and me, and my daughters and their sisters, obviously. To see the evolution of hearing those stories, becoming those stories, and now watching a story happen from the other point of view. So it's probably pretty wild. I'm sure it's probably what my dad was thinking when me and my brother were going at it, and what his dad was thinking when him and his brother were going at it, and so on and so forth. So yeah, quirky things like that have really come to the forefront as I get older, are things that I would never think of, obviously, thinking about in the most part, but nostalgia kind of kicks in. I'm 35. I've just turned 35. I don't mind sharing that. But yeah, like even today, look, I have a Saved by the Bell shirt on, and my daughter, who's 11, was like, "Dad, that's a cool shirt, Saved by the Bell." Like, I don't think of it as a nostalgic thing. My kids do watch the show, have watched the show. I have some DVDs of them as well, and they know it through that. And for them, that's like, man, remember that old show? For me, I lived through it as it happened real time. So as I get older and as I look back on things and as I watch things get remade, obviously, like, the big one recently was Full House and Fuller House and stuff like that. You're seeing more and more of that stuff that we lived growing up, coming back and watching my kids delve into some of this stuff, or even like having one of their favorite bands cover a song from the 80s or something like that, and my kids being like, "You know the song, Dad?" Yeah, I know the song. Not that I would know it anyway, because I'm listening to it in the car 5 billion times. By the way, that's a rant I'm going to go on. Radio. Have you ever got stuck and listened to the radio recently? Yeah, they have like 6 songs that they play on rotation. It sucks. Like, real bad. Like, the same 6 songs. You could almost get to the point where you can guess what song is coming up next based on the song that they played. My kids think it's funny. It's a game. Like, they're like, "Dad, what song is going to play next?" I'll just guess. most likely I'm right. Usually like 75% of the time I'm correct. Just because I know the playlist. I know what's being played. I get surprised when it's something I've never heard before. Because I'm like, oh my god, they're playing something new. Maybe that's just me getting old. I don't know. I feel like I'm in that weird crosshair where I am not like old, but I'm not young anymore. And I think that is surprising to me that came at 35, because I think about where my parents were at 35 and I thought they were ancient. So if you're anywhere in our age bracket, you have kids, you're probably going to completely understand this rant. But yeah. So that's really what we got going on today. I wanted to get on here and obviously talk and enjoy, putting out these views and getting away to talk about these, because I don't have much time to talk about it. Usually especially with having the younger child, our son, that takes up a lot of time, so you don't really get to kind of sit down and reflect on a lot of things, and that's something I want to do more of as I get older. So I think it's definitely something you need to do as a person, or as a reflect, and I haven't taken a lot of time to do that until recently. So I'm going to reflect and enjoy being in a spot where I make a comfortable income and I can take care of my family, and I am an adult, which I have been for a while, but I really feel like an adult, and still enjoy being a kid. So if you can understand that, definitely you'll enjoy these podcasts, because that's really what it is. It's being an adult, being a kid, never letting that goofy sense of life take you out of it. So I really enjoy doing these, and I hope you guys enjoy watching them, and that's the show for today. So enjoy the rest of your week, and I'm not sure if Jay will be back next week or if it'll be another week out, but one way or another, you will see either me by myself or Jay with me next week. So enjoy your week, and then thank you for watching this podcast. If you did watch it, please leave a thumbs up on here on YouTube, or if you're listening, rate, subscribe, review, all that stuff kind of helps us get more noticed by the algorithms or whatever they use to promote podcasts, and then it gets us more listeners. So if you like what you're hearing, definitely pass it on, and tell a friend, share it with a friend, and also feel free to contact us. Always, you can check us out up here on top, Yo Dude Podcast, Twitter, Instagram. Just slide in the DMs. Let us know how you're liking it. Post a regular comment, and share it with your friends. So you can find us right now currently on iTunes, Podbean, YouTube. We're still working on Google, and I'm like going to the heavens over here. I guess I got this weird light, but so we'll be on more platforms. We just keep expanding, and we enjoy doing this, so you'll continue to see us as much as you want, and we'll catch you guys next week. All right, peace. Hey everybody, Ant here. Just wanted to say thank you for watching.
Yo, dude!
If you liked what you saw, definitely hit the subscribe button so you get first notifications when everything comes out. Also, follow us on Twitter at Yo Dude Podcast, at Matty Machine Gun, and at PatchBlackDFS.